Hey fellow gamers, this is Strategic Variant here with another variant going on for you. These variants come from my new campaign system for Eldritch Horror called Rising Darkness. It's a way to play all of the ancient old ones one right after another in a campaign that's very thematically tied and really gives you the best content, use of your content for this game. So I'm going to start today with my top 5 favorite variants I like to play while playing Eldritch Horror. I believe that any variant needs to match the game that you're playing, so obviously in a game like Eldritch Horror that has lots of theme, all of the variants you'll see today have some kind of thematic tie to justify them. I'm also not a fan of variants that just make things too easy, but I guess that's subjective, so you can let me know what you think about that. So, as you see, we have our reserve here. This is a variant that I like to call the Strategic or the Merchant Reserve. You have 4 different reserve decks, but you'll see that they have been organized. So in this first stack we have anything that says weapon in the title on it. In the second stack we have anything that says ally in the title on it. In the third stack we have anything that says service on it or teamwork. And then the last pile is just everything else, so trinkets, items, all those sorts of things. So the thematic backing on this variant is the fact that you obviously would go out seeking for help as you're trying to solve these investigations. So you go to very specialized people that would service in specialized things. So obviously pile number 1 here deals with weapons. So I like to call this one the black market weapons dealer. The ally one I like to call a recruiter, because you obviously have somebody out there who's not brave enough to go face down monsters, but he's looking for people to work with you. The third pile here is your coordinator, the guy who sits back kind of like Charlie Kane does in the game, just usually sits in San Francisco sending stuff out. This is your guy who coordinates everything for you and gets you the stuff you need. And then I like to call the everything else pile, this is kind of like your esoteric, weird guy from Chinatown who, you know, you walk into his shop and you never know exactly what you're going to find in there, but sometimes it's really awesome. So this is a little different because you don't just have 4 cards here, so I'm going to address the different ways that this variant interacts with the game. Often you're told to draw a random item or a random weapon, so obviously we're just going to settle that with our old friend the D6 here. So for instance, let's say you get a card effect that says draw 1 random weapon asset from the reserve. So what you're going to do is this top card, you're going to treat it just like you would in the base rules. It's going to stay right here on top of the deck. You're not going to replace that, and that's not a random card you're going to be able to draw. So then what you would do is you go through here, randomize your cards, pull the top card off, and whammo, that's your random weapon asset. And then you randomize the cards again, don't look at them, and then slap that one back on the top, because you know that's the one that your weapons dealer is saying, hey, I could offer you this anytime, you could get it from me. That's how you draw a random item from any of these piles. You want to remove the top card and then draw randomly from the cards left over. That way it more closely matches the mechanic that's innate to the game. The other thing that sometimes comes up is it says draw 1 random item asset. So that can apply both to weapons and to your pile of esoterica over here. So in that case, once again, I just roll a d8, 1 through 3, 4 through 6, boom. So 1 through 3, we'd be drawing a random item asset. Same concept, remove the top card, randomize, draw, randomize, place back on top. I feel this variant's really nice. I hate just burning through a bunch of actions trying to get to things I need in the reserve. That will only get exacerbated by the fact that I'm getting, you know, the 2 new additional expansions here come for Christmas. So this helps you really kind of get what you need, but I don't feel like it lets you cotton pick the items that you receive for the game. It makes it a little bit more strategic, so that's why I'm a big fan of it. I like that it's thematically based. I also do have to note that it is inspired off of other things that I've read on Board Game Geek and the Variants forum. I've tried to track down those forums, but I'm not claiming this as my own. I feel I've tweaked it a little bit for my own purposes and clarified a little bit of the rules, so that I will take ownership of. But now we're going to move on to my number 2 pick of favorite variants to play. Alright, and one last thing I forgot to mention, guys, is that the way I play it is when you draw one of these cards, the card below it is immediately available. So if you've got Charlie Kane and he's purchasing like crazy, or you can throw a deck condition and get something in addition, When you remove a card, what's below it is immediately available for purchase as well. That gives you also, you know, it's like the merchant saying, hey, but I also got this. You want to go into debt to get this one too? I kind of like that as well. Pretty thematic and gives you, once again, another interesting decision to make. Alright, here's the number 2 variant that I like to play while playing Eldritch Horror. This one I like to call the Progressive Mysteries variant. Often what will happen in a really hard game of Arkham Horror, you'll sit out here trying to destroy the green flame for 10 of the 16 turns, and you never do it. You just can't do it. People keep dying, and you only see one mystery for the whole game. It's very frustrating. You feel like you don't really get to see a lot of the content of the game. And if you've got mainly support characters, they're really not going to do much. So they end up just wandering around collecting boat tickets and clue tokens and whatever. So this variant, people may argue, can make the game easier. Sometimes it makes the game drastically harder. So what I've done is you'll start the game just like you would. You'll put one mystery out, you'll resolve its effects, put the creature wherever it's supposed to go or whatever, and then you'll build your mythos deck. But then, in between the stages of your mythos deck, as it dictates here on the old one card, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, so on top, between stage 1 and 2, that's where you're going to take your mystery card and you're going to place it in the deck, and then between 2 and 3. So how this works is those are going to sit in there until you get to the point, so we're drawing mythos cards here. Okay, start of the mythos phase. We now have our mystery card on top of the deck. So what that means is we're going to set this aside. We're going to resolve the very next mythos card it was sitting on. And then, at the end of the mythos phase, the next mystery comes into play. So that means that you can have 2 and sometimes 3 mysteries in play if you're really not doing very hot. And this can, like I said, be good or very bad. Sometimes this leads to having multiple epic monsters on the board at the same time. Sometimes it lets you do a little bit more strategic decision making, where you've got a bunch of clue tokens, but you're fighting a monster. Boom! Oh, suddenly we have the Seed of the Daemon Sultan out. Ah, hey, I need clue tokens and somebody with some observation for that. I feel it makes it a little bit better to help move the game along. If you think about it, I kind of think the thematic justification of this is the very first mystery is something you hear about in, like, you know, the newspaper, and you go out and start exploring it, but stuff is going to continue to happen, right? The Ancient Old One's not going to fail to reveal mysteries just because you're not out there looking for them. So I feel this is kind of the story progressing at its, you know, plotting inevitability towards the end of the world. I like it. Some people say it's too hard. So here's my retort to people saying it's too hard. The other way that you can play this variant is you stack the mysteries just the same. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention. If you so happen to solve the first mystery, you would go in here into the deck and you'd pull the second mystery out just like you would and reveal it. So if we don't get there quite yet to have it revealed from the deck, but this gets solved, then you would go into the deck and move out the second mystery. But what you can do otherwise, which can make this game drastically harder if you feel this variant's too easy, what you can do is you're only allowed to reveal a mystery when it would be revealed from the mystery deck. And we're like, well, that's not so bad. But if you think about it, that means on average, by the time your last mystery is revealed, you only have 6 turns. And that's barring any really scary red ones that might be sitting in there that, you know, flip over and it's the end of the game. So if you want to play that way, I personally never won that way yet. That's pretty scary, because the mysteries A will stack, and then B, you're not allowed to solve them until they're revealed, and that means at the very end you have only 6 turns to solve your last mystery, and sometimes that is nigh impossible. So that is the Progressive Mysteries variant that I love to play while playing Eldritch Horror. We'll go on to number 3. Alright, onward to number 3 variant that I like to play while playing Eldritch Horror. I like to call this one the Strategic Turn Order variant. I love playing cooperative games. Cooperative games are one of my all-time favorite games. But the one thing that always just irks me about cooperative games is that it's always pick somebody who's the leader, and then everybody gets to go clockwise from there, right? So, you know, people say, ah, but that's still okay, it's still strategic, but you know, you have to sit and you stay in the same order every time. That doesn't feel thematic to me. I feel like the investigators would be coordinating. They'd be saying, well, you go first, you go do that. Oh, make sure to get that monster out of my way so that I can go in there and close the gate. So I have a real problem. I honestly don't know why a lot of these cooperative games have that rule. It's probably to make it seem like it's fair for everybody. Some people get really testy if they're like, ah, but I haven't gone for 3 turns. So my way around that is a strategic turn order. And this is how it works in Eldritch Horror. How it works is there's an action phase in Eldritch Horror and an encounter phase in Eldritch Horror. So what I like to play is I can have anybody go in any order that I want, as far as all actions by all players happen, and then all encounters by all characters then happen. But I can choose the order in which they happen. This makes it a lot more strategic. There's a lot more interaction. There's, you know, you can have really cool complex turns where you have 2 or 3 different investigators going to one place, handing off a ticket as they're like, ah, go kill Cthulhu. You know, it's a lot more thematic. It's a lot more coordinative. People could argue that this variant does make the game easier, but as everybody who's ever played Eldritch Horror knows, that Eldritch Horror can always get harder. So if I can increase a little bit of a difficulty, see a little bit more content from my Scary Tentacle Mythos cards, which sometimes afraid to play, and I can do that by using a variant that increases the theme, I always go for that. Little spoiler alert, the next 2 variants I'm going to talk about in this list are variants that can drastically increase the difficulty of the game while adding a whole lot of theme. Alright, here's number 4 on my list of variants I like to play while playing Eldritch Horror, and this one I like to call, with homage to the wonderful movie, I like to call this one the League of Extraordinary Investigators. Usually in the base game rules you get to decide who your investigators are. At every time an investigator dies, whoever's defeated, unless they're devoured or otherwise or whatever, they get to pick a new investigator. So that's usually okay. You can reach into the box and say, okay, you know, we're going to grab so-and-so. That's who we really need right now. But in this variant, before you even start the game, you have to choose a select number of investigators that you're going to use. You get lots of extra characters through the expansions, so it feels like you've got this massive array of people you can pick from. But if you use this variant, you have to be very strategic with, okay, these are going to be my first tier guys. If so-and-so dies, I'm going to have this one to back him up who's sort of like them. You know, I've also got to have a fighter to back up a fighter, or a spellcaster to back up a spellcaster. I really like the feel of this. It really takes really awesome shape when you play it with the Rising Darkness campaign system, like I mentioned, because you're going to play over the course of 8 ancient old ones, and you start from the very beginning with a very select few number of investigators. You can pick what that is. Typically I play with anywhere from 8 to 10 investigators that I pre-select. And then once those investigators are dead, I'm out. The game's over. There's no more investigators to get. I feel this is a great variant. It really makes you kind of figure out who's my A team, who's my B team. So as kind of fun for that, I'll show you just briefly, and I'll do other gameplay videos. This is my A team. I love playing 4 players. I think 4 players is the ultimate sweet spot for Eldritch Horror. So this is my A team. I like to play with Trish Scarborough, the spy. She's got this great ability that says if you don't have a clue, you can get a clue. I like to combine her ability with Jacqueline Hill. Anytime somebody gains a condition that's not a common condition, she can get a clue token once per turn. And then her action ability is she can take clue tokens for other people. So I use these 2 in concert to really generate a lot of clue tokens. It saves me time from having to run around and do stupid research encounters, which is just a waste of time in my opinion. So these 2 are like my frontline support characters. Plus Jacqueline's really good for a lot of Rumor Mythos cards. She's got great observation. So does Jacqueline. Jacqueline can be quite a powerful wizard or sorceress, or however you want to say it, towards the end of the game. The other two people on my A team is Silas Marsh. I love Silas. He's got really decent stats. He starts out on Sydney, which allows him to boost his strength right from the very beginning of the game. And if you've got him traveling over water spaces, he has incredible mobility. You get a gun or a weapon into his hand, plus his innate weapon for fishing net, he can really get taken down the baddies. You get those baddies out on the water, and he makes Cthulhu look like a tuna fish. This is my main lady, my star of the show, Lily Chen. I just love what she does in the game. She's got a great action where she can kind of create Zen and then even out her hit points, exchanging hit points for sanity. And I love that her passive ability is anytime you improve a skill, you can improve that skill again. So what I like to do with her is I start her out in Shanghai, immediately drop her down to Sydney with Silas Marsh. You'll see this, I'm sure, as I play. And I beef her strength straight from 4 to 6, probably within the first 2 turns of the game. Drop a weapon on that, and she is just killer. You combine her with the double barrel shotgun, and things get crazy. So that's my A team. I love drafting my teams. I like to think about what team's going to take this on, how are they going to carry forward, and like I said, in the Rising Darkness campaign system, that just enhances, because all the time you invest in the investigator for the first Ancient Old One, you take those things, you put it against the second Ancient Old One, and it's amazing. So now we're going to be moving on to my last favorite variant while playing Eldritch Horror. Alright everybody, here's my number 5 favorite variant while playing Eldritch Horror. I've named it after my campaign system. I call this the Rising Darkness variant. So this variant circles around manipulating the investigator number of the game, but in a very specific way. Sometimes people are like, you're a cooperative game, you want a harder game of Eldritch Horror. Instead of playing with just, the 4-player cards, you can make that the 6-player card, but that's just crazy, because then you're spawning like 2 gates and monster surges and whatnot. It really unbalances the game. But I think with a slight variation, that concept can be used quite effectively. So I propose in increasing the game in this way, the difficulty in this way, you add 1 to the investigator count, but when only specific things. So for instance, on mystery cards, you would add 1 to the investigator count to solve any mystery card. So on this one, at the end of the Mythos phase, if there are Eldritch tokens on this card equal to half, so if you're playing with 4, that'd be 2, you add 1, so suddenly it's 3. It doesn't seem like a lot, but guess what? You, after playing the game and expecting that to be half, and suddenly you got to add 1 more to that, that makes it quite challenging. The other thing that you would add this to is counts for rumor cards. This one, clues equal to half. Suddenly you're like, oh yeah, we'll get 2 clues. Oh wait, we need 1 more clue to solve this mystery. Makes it a lot harder. The other place where you would add this count of 1 is to the toughness of any epic monster cards any epic monsters that come out. Rah! So this is toughness equal to investigators plus 2. So normally that would be 6, but everybody who's ever played Eldritch Horror knows rolling just that 1 more die sometimes can be a humongous obstacle. So suddenly you've got this dragon who has 7 toughness instead of only 6. He turns out to be a bit of more of a bruiser at that point. I feel it adds to the game without adding the millions of extra gates that you don't have people to close. But it feels like it can add some. Like I said, you can add 1 if you're doing the Rising Darkness campaign system. You can add 1 for every Ancient Old One you pass, which can get kind of crazy epic. But so if you do that in the campaign system, I recommend only adding him after the 3rd campaign, after you've beat Shub Niggurath. Otherwise, try it. If you can get it on film that you passed it, epic win for you, because this 1 adjustment, adding 1 to the count of these items, the mysteries, the rumors, and the epic monsters, can be quite intense. I find it really thrilling. Breaks up the monotony. You're usually like, oh, I just need 2 clues, and you kind of get that in the head. This breaks you out of that mold, and I love it a lot. So I really hope you guys have liked this this list of 5 variants that I like playing with Eldritch Horror. I look forward to making a lot more content. I finally have a decent camera. We're going to play a lot of Eldritch Horror here in the next little while. I'm probably going to hold off till I get my new content for Christmas, but that's 2 days from now. So I'm going to be doing that. I've also got some great plans for building a really awesome foam core insert once I get these expansions. I'll make sure to show that off to you guys as well. So stay tuned. We'll give you a lot of content here on Eldritch Horror. And we're going to be talking a lot of strategy and conversation. I love talking about different ways to do this. Some people say games with dice have no strategy. Sure, there's a little luck involved, but I like to show that there's definitely some strategic, awesome decisions. Not to mention, Eldritch Horror does an amazing job of weaving a great storyline that's unique. That's the other reason I wanted to film these, is because I want to preserve all these cool stories that I'm creating, and I'm really sad that some of the really good ones have already passed before I've been able to record them, but I'm sure we'll find some good ones along the way. That's it. Keep playing games, guys. Have a good time.